Okay guys, sorry I'm back. I just had to go to the bathroom and I had to think really hard about what it is that I want to do for the bishop, because from the last games that I was playing, I was having a very hard time getting a consistent result as to how much range the gun has. So the way that I looked at it, the gun probably has a range of about, let's say, 500. Now, that's not the limit of the gun's range, but if you're on level ground, it's probably about 500. If you have a little bit of a sloping that allows you to tilt the gun up more, then you can get a bit more range, about, I don't know, 650, something like that. But it's not very consistent because the gun depression is not that good. Or sorry, the gun elevation isn't that good. And it doesn't seem to be that you have a lot of, how should I put it? You don't seem to have a lot of trajectory to your shots. The trajectory is almost the same, I'd probably say, as the M41 HMC, which isn't really the best given the amount of elevation this gun has. Because what it then means is whenever you fire this thing, or depending on what kind of slope it is, what kind of angle you're at, the amount of range that your shot is going to have, conversely to that, is going to be much, much lower, which is a problem. The gun traverse, it's actually worse than the G Panzer Mark VI. The dispersion is pretty bad given all of the negatives that I'm seeing here. Actually, I'd almost say that this vehicle is worse as far as performance than the G Panzer Mark. Actually, hold on a second. The G Panzer Mark VI. Interesting. So the G Panzer Mark VI actually has more penetration to its shots than the Bishop does, and it has worse average damage per shot. So that's something to consider as well. So there's not a lot favoring this first gun. Now, I did take a look at the second gun. Now, it doesn't show all the statistics here, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, the dispersion difference here, or at least it shows it here, is about 4%. So this actually has 4% worse dispersion than the first gun. The trade-off is that you start to get a reasonable amount of penetration for the gun, and a reasonable average damage. And, well, the aim time is about the same. Now, I brought it up here in the comparison, and we're just going to take a look at this, just to see what we're looking at here. I don't mind running this down a little bit. I'm not too worried. Now, the only thing is that the rate of fire for the first gun is better, but arguably I don't think it makes any difference at all, because I'm not sure if I can get enough performance out of the gun to really make it through this vehicle and succeed. The only problem is the dispersion, which actually shown here, based on my current crew, is actually 5% worse, so it's even worse than the base would be, which I suppose will improve once the crew gets up in level. But that's going to be the problem in this vehicle, is the crew is going to be very difficult to train. Very difficult to train. It actually would probably be easier to train the crew in the Birch gun than it would be in the Bishop, which, you know, is kind of sad. But having said that, let's just take a look at some of these other statistics here. The traverse speed, well, actually that wouldn't change. Now the gun traverse speed, let's see where that is. Gun traverse speed, it's basically the same. It doesn't change with the gun. So it actually retains more of its concealment when it fires, but I mean, that's not a big deal either. So what I'm looking at is either a faster firing gun, which doesn't do much damage at all, and has a reasonable dispersion, even considering that my crew isn't doing that well. So, I don't know. I think the only way how I can make this work so I think no matter what, I do have to get the better tracks. Just so that at least we can get an enhanced gun laying drive on this thing, so that we can at least get shots lined up on targets properly. I don't think that there's any way around this. It's just not going to be worth the slower crawl. Once I get this, then I'll determine if... Oh, that's interesting. There's reduced chance for fire. And then a better engine eventually. Well, hold on a second. What is this engine here? No. No. So the engine here has absolutely nothing to do with the engines later on. I don't think so anyways. So yeah, the one thing that we do have to get, which I don't think the vehicles... Hold on a second. Let's just look at the radio. Module not researched. Okay, so the vehicle isn't heavy enough that putting this on would be too much. Actually, yeah, the radios are basically the same. So, for argument's sake, I could just go through here and go directly into here as quickly as possible. That could be slow though. So really the question is, do I want to forgo the equipment and just get as much as I can out of the vehicle before basically getting here? Or do I want to get the equipment, potentially take longer in order to get to the FE304, but at least be able to contribute a bit more? That's the question that I'm considering. And who knows, maybe I should just grind through the Bishop, avoid everything except the radio, and just go straight into the FE304. I mean, eventually I'm going to go back to the Bishop and try and get mastery in it. But if I am trying to rush to get to the FE304 and start retraining my crew, I may need as much time as I can get in order to get that done. And if that's the case, you know, that's just what it's going to have to be, right? So, yeah, maybe... Here's what we'll do. We'll play a couple more games. We'll see if we can get the groove for how to operate the Bishop, and see if we can make up for what the Bishop lacks right now by our positioning and just our coordination. And supposing that we can do at least that, maybe we can take it, get through here, and then go straight into the FE304 as soon as possible. That's what I'm thinking right now. It may actually be worthwhile at some point to use these in order to get through the Bishop, but I'll have to think about that, because I still have some of these, and it may be worthwhile just to use them for the time being. But yeah, that being the case, it doesn't seem like there's any room for... Well, actually, hold on a second. Huh. So this actually weighs less than this, making room for more equipment and stuff. But you know what? Well, okay, so we'll play some games and we'll find out. There's no point in running any consumable to improve performance, because if we can't position this thing correctly to make it work in the first place, then those consumables are just going to go to waste. So, all right, live oaks. Move to C. Well, hold on a second. There are no, well, actually, there are some heavy tanks. There aren't a lot, though. So the question is, okay, so let's try moving forward to that position over there. The vehicle does move relatively slow. Actually, if the vehicle moves relatively slow, you know what? We're going to go over here. What am I looking at? That's not bad. That could be much worse. Not the best shot. There's the Sherman. Shot went off to the side. Okay, so that has about a 2-second travel time. About. The gun isn't too reliable. There's a hit in.
That was close.
Close, but not enough. Shot went high. Shot went low. Yeah, see, big difference. I mean, look at the difference in the range. It's almost like 700. Okay, let's just say this is level. Okay, 550 meters. 550 meters. So there you go. Now we didn't do a lot, but we did something. It was a minuscule, but at least we're getting some experience and credits out of that, which is important. Now that's being increased some, but even so, I'll take that. Yeah. So definitely not a vehicle that you can easily get. What is it? Well, I don't know. You know, maybe that makes a big difference between a player that can get mastery in the vehicle and a player that can't. You know. Don't get a lot of change out of getting the other engine parts. I took a look. The difference is very minuscule, so you won't get any real performance out of that. Better tracks. I don't really see a big change in traverse, and because you don't have a very powerful engine, it's not going to make much difference there either.
Let's go.
Was he trying to hit him? I don't know. Okay, so here's B8. Reposition. anyways. Oh, that was not good. Okay. Yep. This thing is definitely nightmare fuel. Nightmare fuel. But don't worry. We got the experience that we needed in order to get closer to getting the radio so that we can get to the FE304. Now, I'm not going to say that this thing is terrible, because I can't say that, because you would have to expect that I played this in a 100% crew, and with everything that's already pretty good on it. But, if you're playing it stock, for 75% crew, nightmare fuel. And that's not even fair too, because it's technically not a 75% crew, because you would think, oh, well, the commander's 75%, and with him being 75%, everyone else is, what is it, 84%? So yeah, it's not even a 75% crew. So yeah, of course it's going to be nightmare fuel. The question is, can we use the nightmare fuel to fuel the dream, which is getting the Conqueror gun carriage before the event starts? Because if we did this during the event, we would have run into the same thing with the French. No.
Gunner is dead. We're shooting blind. Bail out. This vehicle has had it.
Well, I got a fortunate shot on the TOG 2 at least, which got me a lot of spotting or assist damage through tracking. Sure, that'll equal out to a decent amount of experience at the very least. Just gonna take a quick look at something, guys. Yeah, so I think I figured out the trick how to increase the range to something decent, I suppose. And that's the thing, 550 meters of gun range isn't necessarily bad, but if you ever get on a hill, it quickly turns bad just because. Yeah. Well, we're not at the bottom at the very least. It was a defeat. But I mean, yeah. So, screw it. Let's go for a little bit longer. See if we can get as much experience as possible so that we can get the radio and get as close as we can to getting to this. And ultimately take advantage of the remainder of the crew experience boost that we're getting right now, because honestly, we're gonna need it so that we can get to the next vehicle with some semblance of dignity. Excuse me. Alright. And that's the thing, even once we get to the FE304, we don't want to retrain the crew right away, because we want to find out if there's sort of a sweet spot there for getting experience and all that jazz. So we're assaulting. Now, I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I felt I needed to get to the top of this hill. kind of vehicles? Yeah, and a grill.
The gunner is wounded. He'll have a hard time hitting anything.
Well, a gunner out of action, not a good thing, so that's not happening. Actually, I should relocate. Whoops.
hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. We're done for. Everyone get out.
Yeah, so that's a defeat and a victory for them because they successfully defended. Ugh, yeah. Actually, that's something there. Should remove this and put it on this vehicle. Oh, actually, I can't. My bad. Yeah. Well, I feel sorry for any Bishop drivers out there. Now I understand your pain, or at least if you're stock, and have a 75% crew, or worse than 75% crew, technically. We are bottom tier by 2 tiers. Yeah, I feel sorry for any UK artillery mains, especially when they're bottom tier, because it almost guarantees that they'll be doing very little in the game.
Time to roll out.
Oh well. do something a little interesting here. We're going to go right into this spot, actually. Which, may be pretty good for us. Oh, yeah, actually, it's pretty good. I like the bishop. I hate the bishop. This has got a fast rate of fire.
Critical hit.
And arguably from this position.
Critical hit. One of our tracks is damaged. We're done for. Everyone get out.
It's a risky position, but I don't know. Having said that, I wonder if it'd be worth it to actually go towards the heavy side instead. And just, I don't know, try and focus on taking out enemy tracks. I guess don't worry about doing any damage to the vehicles, just focus on damaging the tracks and all that. Preventing them from being able to move. But I think I'm done globalizing my uncertainties about the vehicle. East. Oh yeah. So I don't know, on this map, maybe next time I'll try and go on the heavy side. Mind you, I'd like to try that position again just to see if it works. Like I said, it's risky, but I mean, if it allows you to get shots on targets, then maybe it's worthwhile, you know? Actually, how many on the enemy team were heavies? Yeah.
The gunner is dead. We're trying to cover for him.
Maybe it would have been worthwhile to try and evac down into here. You know, get into the bridge area or something. How long till... Oh yeah, still a little ways off. Oh, really? Yeah, I guess I really shouldn't say my crew is 75%. But bottom tier by 1 tier. I wonder if moving straight to there would be worthwhile.
Your assistance has been requested. Platoon joined. Move out.
Nice work, friend. It's the only problem with being right here, and I've wondered about this too.
Critical hit.
Nice.
Critical hit.
That would have been perfect. Okay. Right. Well, bit by bit. Death by inches. And pretty soon he's going to be up to... Oh, he's already at 90%. Wait, whoops, he was at... Oh. Yeah, that's right. I took the less trained crew members. My brilliant plan to even out the training for everybody. The brilliant plan! Put everyone on the same level, I said. Make the game more interesting, I said. Actually, I didn't say that last part, but yeah. Oh, joy. This ought to be an interesting map to play on. Over there. If I can get up that hill, I'm not sure if I have the engine power to do it. Maybe if I find the right spot, I could just slide right up there. Just slide right in. We're about to find out if we can get up here. Well, oh yeah, you can get up here. Nice. The perfect miss. Another perfect miss. Another perfect miss. What happens if I aim it to the one side? Will it shoot better?
That was close. Critical hit.
Could have been nice, but it wasn't. Oh.
Critical hit.
Hit that rock.
Critical engine damage. Bail out. This vehicle has had it.
Hmm? Oh, he committed pseudo coup. Nice. Little bits of damage. Yeah, I think when he said that you can penetrate the top of an IS, I think he said an IS-3. I think he was talking about with this gun, not this gun. Because on the top of a vehicle, like 28 millimeters of penetration, that's going to make a big difference. With 22, like 9 millimeters of different of penetration, like difference in penetration. Makes a big difference. It really does. Actually, I don't even have to buy this. I don't even have to buy this. Actually, is it used ever again? Like ever again? No, it's not. I mean, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to buy it just so that it's not going to make a big difference. It'll be useful to have the extra radio coverage, and it's not like extra weight or anything like that. It's not like it can't be supported. So, yeah, just make that simple. Okay, now we have an improved radio and we're ready to go. Grind out all this extra experience that we need for the Tier 6. We're on our way. We're going places. No sarcasm intended. Honestly, though, it does seem very interesting that we could potentially shoot at bigger targets, which, you know, if you're playing in the M44, just as an example, shooting at bigger targets, even like shooting at higher tier targets, because we assume that they're bigger targets, so it's easier to hit them at least, you know, that's something. Of course, in the M44, I don't have to worry about hitting targets most of the time, because the ranges which I'm going to be shooting at, especially the ranges that I'm shooting at in the Bishop, you know, big difference. But with the Bishop, we don't really have the luxury of shooting at bigger targets in order to hit them, because there's no guarantee that we're going to do anything. We might track them, and someone might be able to follow up with some damage and give us some tracking assist, but that's about as far as that goes. Whoops. I just wanted to check something here. Okay. It's 12:02, so probably after these reserves are used, I'm probably going to eat something, and then, I don't know, I guess we'll call it quits for tonight, and then work on some more recording stuff. Or I might take a break, I might come back later on, and just finish up the rest of the experience that, you know, we're going to need to burn through in order to get, okay. Fair enough. Whoops. And he's dead. Can't contribute much there. Actually, can we get shots on him? I think we can. We can. Yeah, so this might be a good position.
That was close.
A little bit too high. I didn't think he was going to stop there.
Critical hit.
That probably hit his spaced armor, and usually it's not a problem, but
Critical hit.
actually that's a good spot right there. little bits of damage here and there. Actually, no, I can't hit that. Nice surprise.
That was close.
Dangerous tracks. Not much extra I can say about that though. We'll have an improved firing angle going up this way, but if we try and turn this way, we're going to lose it. So I think we really have no other choice but to just go around. I'm sure everyone will be fine, but it basically means we have to go around in order to... Well, hold on a second. There's a bit of an angle here. You know what? I think we can take advantage of this. There's a small window. It's not enough. Maybe if we go over here, but he's pretty much out of line of sight then. Yeah, then there's the game. No way! We got a bruiser? That's quality gameplay right there. Actually, before we, even if this does run out, we want to try and get that. We do! So, yeah, this thing is, it's finicky, but, I guess you just have to kind of change your standard as to what you expect to do in a game. And the Bishop, it really does require you to change that standard. And it's not a low-profile vehicle either, so you can't really get away with... so yeah, something like the hill would not be a good position for us at all. But where else could you go that would be effective? You know? Actually, then again, let's go into a little spot right here. Because maybe we can't fire at the hill itself. Spot that I was thinking of. I can kind of shoot there. What else can I shoot? That house structure is in the way. What if I position here? Not really. That's still going to be in the way. Got something in there. The Boogie Mobile. Well, that doesn't happen often.
Critical hit. We're done for. Everyone get out.
I wonder if I could have tried to snipe his commander's hatch, I suppose. But with the finicky aim of artillery, that would have been quite the shot.
Damaged. It's working, but not very well. Track hit.
I wouldn't think the kill. Who's that fired at him? A T-34. Everyone's got a good amount of health, actually. Who's left? The T-80? Oh, right, and I got some mystery damage too. Not sure exactly who I hit. It was one of the two vehicles that was going across there. Probably while the T-80 had the chance, he should have gone around. Who said go help the KV? Hey, that was the same position he was in before. Yeah, he was in the same position as he was before. When I was shooting at him. Almost done that. Which is good. More repair parts. Actually, how many do I have accumulated right now? A lot. I could probably sell some of those too, but I'll wait on that. Because you never know. I might eventually use them all. Excuse me. So, we're either trying to get this to run down or get that mission done. So one or the other, whichever comes first, or whichever comes last, I suppose. But we'll see if we can get a good game here, and hopefully that will be the end of it, at least for today. Or at least, you know, before we decide to get as much time as we can in order to use up this experience increase for the crew. Because that's really what we want to do. We want to take advantage of that and get as much as we can. I won't go over my bedtime though. It's important that I stay bright-eyed.
Time to roll out.
Now, 500, huh? So as long as we stay in cover, I'm fine with just having the 500 range. Question is, where can I go that will be a flat surface? Because this is going to take that off just a little bit. So maybe behind this cover here. And right about there, I think. Yep.
Critical hit.
Oops.
Critical hit. We're done for. Everyone get out.
Actually, can I select other vehicles? No, I can't. And that's a win. Cool. And perfect timing. Okay, so let's see what the results were. I don't actually feel like looking at them. Someone else can if they wish. Yeah, so that is the Bishop running at, well, I guess less than 75%. So it's an interesting machine. It'll be interesting to see what it's like once the crew reaches 100%, technically 100%. But yeah, I don't think we're actually going to start training into perks until we get to the FV304 Tier 6. But who knows, right? The most important thing is we eventually get here, so that then we can start, what should we say, training up the crew, getting it native to this vehicle, because I think that's another thing too, is there's nothing uniquely special about the Bishop if you train the crew from the Lloyd gun carrier all the way up through the line, adding new crewmen on. Because what ends up happening, well, like what I was talking about here. So like here, you don't have a unique gunner, so it's basically the loader, the driver, and the commander, who I guess doubles as the gunner, and the radio operator for that vehicle. Whereas with this vehicle, you're basically looking at the well, let's just return the crew to that vehicle. You're looking at a new radio operator, which is never used again, so we won't count that. So you're looking at a new gunner and a new loader. All right, well, that's great. Then you go to this vehicle and you get a new gunner. Okay, so you retain that, or you get to train that, so that gets to be native to that vehicle. So you have some advantage retained. Whereas with the Bishop, it's all the old vehicle operators, so you don't get any added advantage going into this vehicle. It's going to be the same thing with the FE304. Now, interestingly enough, actually I don't remember if this worked out well, but with this crew, it was really bad at tier 2. Once it got to 100%, it was all right. Then you went into the Lorraine, and with this crew, you retained. You got a gunner and a loader, and somehow I got rid of the old loader. Somehow there was a mistake while I was training up the crew, but regardless. And then you went to this vehicle. And actually, the one guy is not retained to this vehicle somehow. Oh, yeah, right, because he was... okay, so let's... Okay, so this vehicle had a new loader that was added. So in this particular case, it would be this guy who was here, but that wasn't. But anyways, but then in this vehicle, it was nothing new. Mind you, the performance in this vehicle wasn't that bad. There were a lot of good things about it. It's just it wasn't at 100%, so it did do everything that it could have and arguably should have. It was kind of the same thing here, but again, the performance was a lot better in this vehicle, or at least I found. Just had a long reload, that's all it was. So there was something very niche about the French artillery, and in this particular case it was that the accuracy of the guns was very good, so you can rely on that. With the UK artillery, I did not find that. So I think maybe what it is the rate of fire is pretty good for the UK. I think that's one thing that's been sort of guaranteed with the UK artillery, is they have a pretty good reload going up. Like the Sexton 2, pretty good reload compared to that of its competitor, which I believe was the M7 Priest. It had a better reload. Okay, so there you go. The Birch gun, I think the Birch gun actually had a better reload too. Not to mention, it had a free moving turret. It was slower, but it had a faster reload, and I suppose the flexibility of it being able to move around its turret, that was another thing too, as opposed to just having a gun, which technically it is a gun, but it's a, free rotating gun. And then the Bishop, the Bishop has a pretty good reload. That's one thing. I mean, if you're lined up in a spot where targets are popping up, you can keep hitting targets, and that's good. So there is a good thing about the Bishop. It's just that because of the other things that aren't so good, and because we didn't go to research the other gun, it's subpar, I would say. But yeah, from what I understand too, the FE304 has a pretty good reload time as well. But don't quote me on that. Actually, I'm curious. Let's take a look. What will it be in? Okay. So 7 shots, gun reload time. Yeah, that's pretty good. Actually, that's even better than the Bishop. So, and on top of that, I think it has really good mobility. Well, the top speed is really high, but with a top speed like that, I'm sure that the engine power would be pretty significant. I think especially so compared to what the yeah, much better. And actually, what is okay specific power to weight ratio, and what's that like here? So that's what, almost triple, 2.5 times, something like that. 2.5 times, yeah. And I think the Traverse is better, but anyways, so yeah, it'll be very interesting to. Now here's the thing: this gun is the same as it is right now. Having said that, let's take a look at the characteristics of this gun. And this gun has less rate of fire, but it does have more penetration. It does have more dispersion, though, having said that. So I think that's really where we were getting into the argument of before. Do you want less dispersion so you have a more accurate shot, or do you want more penetration with every shot that you make? This is going to increase the rate of fire, or increase the reload to probably about 14 seconds, 14 some. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. Probably 13 seconds, something like that. Having said that, you know, maybe the extra penetration is what you're going to need in order to be able to do that damage. And even damage to tracks, you know, maybe you need that penetration in order to do that. Because if it hits the tracks, which are considered armor, and it doesn't penetrate the tracks, actually, and that's an interesting thing, to penetrate a module like the tracks, because the tracks are considered spaced armor. So do you have to penetrate the tracks in order to do damage to the tracks? That's a question. Now, I'm not sure if that is the case. I'm sure that I'll figure it out eventually, especially with this line, because considering the low penetration that we're getting at this point, no doubt about it, you would need something more significant. And then you get more penetration here later on, which I think at this level, I'm not sure what the penetration is like comparatively. So let's say we're looking at the low end, 28 millimeters of penetration. High end, we're looking at average penetration of 23. Let's look at the average penetration of, like, let's say, let's look at this one first. So this one, average penetration, much higher. Okay. And then here, it's about the same. It's about the same. Let's look at the different guns on the M12. So, right, so the penetration is about the same. So you're having a lot more penetration here, which I guess, generally speaking, is going to result in more damage overall. Actually, interestingly enough, yeah, so that's another thing too. The French do have some pretty high penetration for their guns at tier 6. And then the Lorraine has even more penetration. So it's easier to see how you can do much more damage and potentially get better penetrations with the French artillery, and especially considering the accuracy they have, even though they have longer reloads for their guns. So, yeah, differences. So there's speciality in certain lines, whereas there's less in others. And I guess with the, at least so far, with the UK, their thing seems to be reload speed, which you know, is not necessarily bad. But yeah, when you're dealing with, I guess, low accuracy to guns in the first place, that higher fire rate is problematic. You know, because it doesn't guarantee that higher rate of fire is actually going to do anything. Whereas with the French artillery, I could see myself getting away with having worse crew just because their overall higher accuracy would result in less failed hits on a target, and as a result, better performance. So, yeah, I would probably say that with the progress I'm making in the UK line, if I did the same thing as I did with the UK line, prepping before doing the on-track, I probably would have easily gotten the French Tier 10 artillery. Having said that, though, it's interesting to see the differences. I had a little bit of a, well, we'll say it sort of a mind melt, a bit of a breakdown, trying to sort of wrap my head around the performance of these vehicles. But I think I'm getting a better handle on it, figuring out what it is, and hopefully within the next video I can take advantage of that. But for now, that's all the time we have. My name is GD. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope to see you guys in the future. Spirits up, people. Forever forward we march. GD out.